Glass Crown. From a book of old-fashioned fairy tales and fables by Chuma Ikenze. Once upon a time there was a princess who had a small glass crown. There was also an interesting story behind her glass crown, and it goes like this. When the princess was born, there was great joy in the kingdom. People came from far and wide bringing gifts to the child. By the child's cradle were laid gold, silver, and precious stones, along with all kinds of spices and rare fragrances. There were also beautiful bowls, mugs, chains, rings, and clasps. The king and queen were especially happy, and to show their appreciation, they gave each guest a bottle of the rarest ambrosia wine. After the visitors had gone and the excitement had died down at court, an old woman came to the princess's cot. Nobody knew where she had come from. She just smiled and placed a small glass crown on the royal purple of the cradle as she whispered the following words into the child's ears. Little princess, like your heart, guard this little crown. If ever it breaks, never give up trying. Love always overcomes. It will mend a broken crown and a broken heart. Then the old woman kissed the princess and quietly walked away, and nobody knew where she went. For 3 days and 3 nights, strong scents of lilacs and roses lingered in the castle, and bright sunbeams flowed through the great marble stone halls and staterooms. Everyone concluded that a miracle had happened because there was something strange about the little glass crown. They just didn't know what. The girl grew up a very happy child and was always very careful with her glass crown. When she wore her crown, she always looked straight ahead so that the little glass crown would not fall from her head, looking neither to the left nor the right. At night, she dreamed that 12 fairies dressed in white stood around her bed, guarding the little glass crown. The crown always shone and sparkled, 1,000 times brighter and more beautiful than the biggest diamond stone. One day, the little princess was walking among the flowers in the vast garden of the palace. Then she saw a strange flower that had bloomed unnoticed overnight. This flower was in the most distant corner of the garden. The strange flower, with its enchanting beauty, outshone all the other flowers. Its large petals were blue in color. Its calyx shimmered red like drops of blood. The beautiful flowers were bordered by wavy, large, silky green leaves on smooth, dark green stalks. An enchantingly sweet and soft scent emanated from the whole plant. The princess was so captivated that she leaned into the calyx to get a stronger whiff of the scent coming from the flower. Then the little glass crown fell off her head. It fell to the ground and broke into 2 pieces. At the same moment, everything shook and quaked at the royal palace. The court, the servants, and everything in the kingdom sank into a void that opened. The whole country, with all its inhabitants, disappeared. The day had become night. All was gone except for the little princess, who now found herself sitting alone on a gray stone. In front of her lay the broken glass crown. It was a pitch-dark night. In her misery, she began to cry. She sensed that everything that happened was somehow connected to her broken glass crown. Now she regretted that she had forgotten she was wearing the glass crown when she saw the strange flower. Then the princess heard a voice next to her say, "Yes, that's what you get for being careless." Startled, she turned toward the voice and saw an old raven. He was very black and looked very wise. His feet were turned inward, and his head was drawn in. He had sharp and piercing eyes. "Oh, it's so terrible, sobbed the princess. She was glad there was something alive to talk to, and that she was no longer all alone in her misery. "Yes, it's very awful," said the raven, calmly flapping his wings. Even the raven was so moved by the princess's tears that he felt a tear, which he carefully wiped from one of his eyes. He wiggled toward the princess and patted her reassuringly on the shoulder with his wing. Then he said to her, "Yes, it's terrible, but it is not quite as terrible as it would have been if you had plucked the enchanting flower. That would have been much worse. Besides, fairy gifts never lead to a bad ending, not even for those who don't know how to handle them." He said the last words with a little bit of reproach and deliberately pushed the two pieces of the glass crown apart with his beak. He pushed one to the right and the other to the left to confirm that the crown was broken. "Please, is there nothing that you can do to fix my crown?" asked the princess. "You certainly know a lot. Can't you help me?" The raven closed his fluttering eyes and pushed the pieces of the crown back together. "I think so," he said. "But first, you have to understand that you are no longer a princess, and you cannot continue to dress like one. Also, you have to go on a journey of experiencing. I can't tell you what you will experience, but you will have to do so. However, you just have to keep an open mind. To see what it is you must learn for yourself on this journey." What the raven was saying did not make any sense to the princess, but she felt that she had no choice than to follow the advice. She got up and replaced her princess dress with the begging clothes the raven gave her. Then she picked up and put the two pieces of broken glass crown into her pocket. She sighed deeply and thanked the raven for his advice. "You're very welcome," said the raven, extending his claw to say goodbye. The poor princess, now only a poor girl, went on her way in her begging clothes and her broken glass crown to see what experiences would come her way. But more important to her was the hope that she would find someone who would make her crown whole again. Soon she came to a dark forest where the trees were very old and dense, so that a ray of sunshine seldom got down to the dying leaves on the forest floor. The girl continued in this forest until she saw a little man sitting on a tree stump. He was grayish looking and had a nose as red as a carbuncle stone. The man had spider-thin legs. His robe was splendid, made of pure gold thread, and on his head sat a golden crown with prongs. On the prongs were precious stones, each a different kind. All the precious stones of the world seemed to be set into this one crown. This made the crown look heavy, and the girl wondered how the man could carry the weight with his spider-thin legs. The man was sitting quietly, smoking a slim golden pipe in which a pine cone glowed. When he noticed the girl, he called out, "Hey you, what are you thinking? Coming into my forest uninvited?" He said this with a strong hint of annoyance. "I didn't know it was forbidden," the girl apologized. "Well," said the little man, "I forgive you." Then he continued, "So, what do you want? I'm the king of gnomes. Have you come to ask us to make something for you? A tiara, perhaps? But you do not look like you can afford one. All the same, I can take you to our workshop." "That would be a great privilege." Before the girl could reply, the little man hopped down so quickly from the tree stump that his large crown wobbled dangerously on his head. This frightened the girl, as it reminded her of what happened when her own glass crown wobbled and fell of her head. But the man's crown did not fall off his head. As he stood in front of her, he took the pipe out of his mouth and stamped on the ground 3 times with his thin legs. The earth opened up and red embers blazed out of the depths. Then the girl saw a staircase that led into the deepest depths. There seemed to be no end to the steps. She dreaded going down there when the man invited her to follow him. She hesitated, standing at the entrance. Then the little man growled at her. "It is a great privilege." At the same time, he also sounded encouraging. Now, the poor girl dared not refuse, so she followed him down the steps. It wasn't as bad as she thought. Before she knew it, she was down below, in the middle of the gnome's workshop. This workshop was made up of large halls artfully carved into the rocks. There were anvils and forges everywhere. There was a bright glow from all the blazing fires. There was also much noise from the hammers that the little gnomes were using. One almost lost one's hearing. All sorts of things were being forged here. One room was dedicated to weapons. swords, armors, and shields, upon which strange magic symbols were carved for protecting the user against blows and stabs. In another room, utensils such as bowls, dishes, and goblets embedded with precious stones were being made out of gold and silver. The little man hopped back and forth excitedly as he inspected each gnome's work to make sure it was good enough. If something wasn't right, he hissed, got angry, and spat fire right and left. If he liked something, he rubbed his skinny hands with pleasure, and his nose glowed so red that the blazing fire of the forge could not compete. Although the girl liked all that she saw, she was still unhappy because she could only think of her broken glass crown. Then the gnome led her into a room that was much quieter. All one heard here was very gentle hammering that sounded like silver bells ringing. This room was dedicated to making dainty jewelry. Tiaras and crowns were forged here. When the girl saw the little crowns, she became very happy and hopeful that the gnomes could hammer the pieces of her little glass crown back together. She took out the broken pieces of her glass crown and showed them to the little man, saying, "Please, can you fix my little crown? It broke in two, and I have been very sad. I think I will remain sad for as long as it is not whole again." The gnome looked at her indignantly. "What are you thinking?" he said with disdain. "It's a great privilege that I brought you here. No one can forge a broken glass crown. When they're broken, they are broken, and that's that." Then the poor girl began to cry so bitterly that all the gnomes put down their hammers and stopped working, looking at her with pity. The little man himself became very quiet, and a tear rolled slowly down his carbuncle nose. "I have a heart too, you know," he said, "even if I don't use it much. I really feel sorry for you, and I want to do you a favor. I will give you a little golden crown. Yes, I want to do that. But, that is a great privilege." The girl remained sad and said, "Thank you, but I don't want a golden crown, no matter how beautiful. I just want my glass crown fixed again. If you can't do that, I'll have to keep searching." The little man grew angry when the girl rejected his offer. He stamped his skinny legs so hard that his crown wiggled back and forth. Then he waved his arms at her and spat fire to the right and to the left. "You don't want a golden crown? Then off with you. It was such a great privilege for you anyway." At that instant, the girl found herself outside again on the forest floor next to the tree stump where she had first seen the man. She gathered her begging robe and the two broken glass pieces and sadly continued on her way through the forest. She traveled for 7 days and 7 nights, always going north. Soon she was surrounded by snow and ice, and it was so bitterly cold that she trembled in her begging dress. After a little while, she found herself before a wonderful castle. This castle was the home of the Ice Queen. All the gates, towers, and walls were made of crystal clear ice, which shimmered in blue light. 2 icemen stood at the entrance. They wore armor made of ice and held long icicle lances in their hands. When they moved, they crackled and clinked. The Ice Queen sat on an ice throne in a large hall inside the castle, braiding silver moonbeams into her hair. Her laughter sounded like the shattering of 1,000 pieces of ice sheets. As was the custom, the girl was led by the 2 icemen to the throne room to present her to the Ice Queen. The queen gave the girl an ice-cold look for a long time before saying coldly, "So, young lady, to what do we owe the pleasure of your company?" The girl curtsied deeply and replied, "Please, your majesty, I came here in hopes of finding someone who can fix my broken glass crown. I have to keep wandering and searching until I find someone who can put it back together." "Unfortunately, no one here can do that for you," said the Ice Queen with a cold smile. "But you can stay here with me in my castle. I can give you an ice-cold heart that will make you feel nothing. This way, you will no longer think about your broken crown or be sad again. That will be very nice, won't it? You can sit next to me, and we will weave moonbeams into our hair." The girl shook her head and said politely, "Thank you very much, but I don't want an ice-cold heart. I cannot stay if you cannot mend my glass crown. I have to continue searching." "Then," replied the queen, "you'll have to go back where you came from, and good luck on your journey." She said this with an ice-cold laughter. The poor girl left the castle and went back into the snow-covered road to continue her search. During her wanderings, she served here and there as a maid to earn her daily bread. She was always polite and friendly. Everyone was sad when she announced that she had to leave to continue her search for anyone who could mend her broken glass crown. One day, while she was wandering in the Low Country, the girl came to another beautiful castle. This one belonged to an old king who loved to eat sweet soup. The aroma of sweet soup coming from the castle made her very hungry. She had been walking for a few days and was tired. She needed a place to stay. So she walked up to the guard at the sentry post and asked, "Do you know if this castle needs the services of a maid?" Her question struck her as odd, because her first request was always if the person she was speaking to knew of anyone who could fix her broken crown. Perhaps she was just too tired and hungry this time to ask first about fixing the glass crown. Since he did not know, the guard fetched the head cook to answer the girl's question. After taking a good look at her, the head cook fetched the kitchen minister. The minister examined her thoroughly before saying, "Yes, actually, we need the services of a maid." There and then, the girl was hired as a kitchen maid. Not long after the girl was hired, the young prince, the son of the king of the castle, returned from a long journey. He had traveled to many countries looking for a suitable wife. The old king wanted to retire from governing, but he wanted the prince to be married before handing over the throne to him. The young prince had returned to his father's castle without finding a suitable bride to bring home. And the king, the queen, and the whole court was saddened by this news. One day, as the young prince was walking past the kitchen to the stable for his daily horseback ride, he saw the new kitchen maid. It was as if he had never seen anyone so beautiful or charming in his life. This was even after seeing many beautiful maidens in his search for a suitable bride. He immediately forgot about his horseback ride and went in search of the kitchen minister to ask about the kitchen maid. He wanted to know her name and where she came from. The minister could not answer his questions, so he summoned the head cook. The head cook came running, wondering what might have gone wrong. She was more alarmed when she saw the young prince standing next to the minister of the kitchen. For sure, something bad has happened, she thought to herself. But soon she found out that the minister only wanted information about the new kitchen maid. The head cook only knew the girl's name. It had never occurred to her to ask where the new maid had come from. Perhaps this was because the maid was such a good person and everybody loved her. But the head cook figured that the guard at the sentry post would know. After all, he was the first to speak to her and must have seen the direction from which she came. So the minister asked the head cook to fetch the guard. Both of them returned quickly, and the guard stood at attention. But even the guard could not tell the prince where the new maid had come from. The minister then suggested to the prince, "Maybe we should summon the maid to account for herself." After giving it some thought, the prince decided that this was a good idea. So the minister turned to the head cook and asked her to fetch the girl. But he also asked the guard to stand by, just in case the final decision was to throw the maid out. He still had no idea why the prince was so interested in her. The new maid stepped into the presence of the young prince and the minister of the kitchen. Then the minister of the kitchen put the prince's question to the head cook to ask the maid. Protocol forbade the prince or the minister to speak directly to a maid. The maid related her story, explaining that she was a princess from a kingdom that had suddenly disappeared when she broke the glass crown that an old woman had given to her at her birth. She told them of her long journey in search of someone to fix her broken glass crown. She added that she believed the mystery of the disappearance of her beloved homeland was tied to the breaking of the glass crown. She then expressed her hope that by fixing the crown, everything would return to normal and she would be able to return to her parents and her people. The young prince, who had traveled far and wide and seen many strange things, had no difficulty believing the maid's story. Besides, the more he looked into her eyes, the more enchanted he was by her. There and then, he knew that he had found what he had gone all over the world to seek. Here, back at home, was the object of his search. He ordered the kitchen minister to summon the wardrobe minister, who came as fast as the wind could blow a kite. The wardrobe minister bowed to the prince, saying, "Yes, your majesty, how can I be of service?" The prince pointed to the maid and said to the wardrobe minister, "Please prepare an outfit befitting of a princess for this young lady. I want to present her to my parents as my choice for a suitable wife." Everyone was alarmed at the prince's intention. "But she is only a maid, and she has not given any proof that she ever owned a crown," protested the kitchen minister. "Your majesty knows, tradition demands that a prince can only marry royalty." Indeed, what the prince was being reminded of was true. The prince knew that the old king would never go against tradition. So he turned to the maid and said, "Where is that broken crown of yours? Do you have it with you? Can I see it?" The girl, who always had the 2 broken pieces of her crown with her, reached into her pocket, and with the greatest sadness on her face, she handed the pieces to the prince. As soon as the prince held the 2 pieces of the broken crown in his hands, they flew toward each other and merged. Now the young prince was holding a lovely and flawless glass crown, flashing with the most exquisite brilliance of colors he had ever seen. He placed the crown on the girl's head, and everyone saw that it fitted perfectly. There was a loud cry of joy from the kitchen, and everyone was very happy that the young prince had found a suitable wife. The loud noise reached the king and queen, who were in the throne room, even before the young prince brought in the girl. She was now fully transformed in her dress as a princess, and wearing the most beautiful glass crown. The king and queen immediately approved of the prince's choice and agreed to the marriage. But they wanted the princess's parents and court to be at the wedding ceremony. So the young prince decided to go to ask for the hand of the princess from her parents. At first, the princess hesitated because she was not sure how to get back to her home. But by tradition, the prince had to go ask for her hand in marriage from her parents. So she agreed to go with him to find her family. They set off in a gilded carriage drawn by 12 horses. The seats of the carriage were softly padded with thick down feathers. With the gentle rocking motion of the carriage, the princess soon fell into a deep sleep. The next thing she knew, she was being woken in the corner of the garden at her home by a servant. She was wanted in the throne room to present herself to a prince from a foreign land who was looking for a suitable wife. As she stepped into the throne room, she could not believe her eyes. There, in flesh and blood, was the prince of her dream, whose hand had mended her broken heart and her broken glass crown. What more evidence did she need that their marriage would indeed be a life of happily ever after? At the same time, she wondered, if the prince in her dream turned out to be real, could the rest of her dream contain other lessons for her? The one lesson that jumped out at her was to always pursue her dream, no matter the challenges and how enticing other well-meant offers to compromise could be. She had learned that the most important things in life can be very delicate and needed protection. Also, that indeed, love can mend the most fragile and difficult things, like a broken glass crown and a broken heart. Just as the old woman had whispered into her ears, "Little princess, like your heart, guard this little crown. If ever it breaks, never give up trying. Love always overcomes It will mend a broken crown and a broken heart.